15. Haunted celebrity mansions. Hollywood never wanted you to see. That will shock you. What if your dream home came with a nightmare you couldn't escape? Behind Hollywood's glitz lies a chilling truth. Some of its most iconic celebrities lived in homes so haunted, even the richest stars couldn't stay. From ghostly whispers to flying dishes and voices from the beyond, these aren't movie scripts. They're real. In this video, we uncover 15 haunted celebrity mansions that Hollywood tried to silence. You won't believe who still lingers after death. Watch until the end, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Uncovered Tinseltown Uncovered for more untold stories they never wanted you to hear. Marilyn Monroe passed away on August 5, 1962. At her modest Brentwood home in Los Angeles, many believe her spirit never truly departed. The house, located at 10305 Fifth Helena Drive, was purchased just months before her tragic death from an apparent overdose. But according to decades of reports, demolition crews, paranormal investigators, and even new homeowners, something remains tethered to the site, and it's not just Hollywood legend. Construction workers claimed to hear unexplained crying while renovating the property in the 1970s. Despite being razed and rebuilt twice, once in the 1970s and again in 2017, the lot continues to spark accounts of unsettling activity. Most chilling are reports of Monroe's figure appearing at windows, vanishing pills, reappearing on counters, and EMF electromagnetic field readings spiking without cause. One of the most widely circulated stories involves a dinner party held at the rebuilt home in the 1990s. Multiple guests claimed to see a distraught woman in a pale dress resembling Monroe, pointing silently at specific individuals rumored to have been part of her inner circle. Investigators brought in later reportedly captured ghostly voices repeating the phrase, "not suicide." Monroe's ghost is often described as confused, sorrowful, and desperate to communicate something long buried. Psychics who visited the property insist that she's trying to reveal the truth behind her death, one many still question today. Despite efforts to cleanse the location, the activity has persisted for over 60 years. The current owners remain anonymous, shielded by strict legal protections and non-disclosure agreements. But those who've stepped inside swear the past isn't finished speaking. In the City of Illusions, Monroe's lingering presence remains one of its most chilling realities. The notorious Big, Christopher Wallace, better known as the Notorious B.I.G., recorded some of his most iconic work at a private Los Angeles studio in the final weeks of his life. Following his murder on March 9, 1997, the studio became a sacred space for hip-hop, but also something far more unsettling. Rumors began to circulate among artists and engineers that Biggie's spirit never left the booth. What began as whispered anecdotes soon escalated into consistent, unexplained phenomena. Engineers discovered tracks on equipment that hadn't been in use, complete with vocals that eerily resembled Wallace's tone cadence and lyrical style. These were not archival recordings. They featured words and references to events that occurred long after his death. Veteran producers who had worked with Biggie claimed that these spectral sessions usually happened after hours, often when the studio was locked and no one was inside. Security footage showed mixing boards moving on their own levels, adjusting themselves mid-session, and microphones activating without input. Some artists reported being struck by sudden bursts of creative energy, freestyling lyrics with uncharacteristic flow and complexity, as if someone or something were guiding them. Others described feeling watched, judged, or even inspired by a heavy unseen presence in the room. Sean P. Diddy Combs, Biggie's close friend and collaborator, has allegedly acknowledged these occurrences privately and considers the space blessed rather than haunted. Audio technicians have since collected hours of unexplained recordings believed to contain Biggie's voice, commenting on modern hip-hop, offering guidance to new artists, or simply repeating phrases he was known for. Today, the studio operates under a different name, guarded fiercely by confidentiality agreements. But in the underground music world, it's become hallowed ground. Not just for what was created there, but for the spirit that may still be creating. River Phoenix was tragically cut short at just 23 years old after a fatal overdose outside the Viper Room on October 31, 1993. But it's not the club that's haunted. It's the quiet West Hollywood residence he lived in during his final months. This modest ivy-lined property has become the subject of eerie speculation for nearly 3 decades. Owners who purchased the home following Phoenix's death reported recurring sightings of a young man sitting alone in the garden, often seen reading or tending to plants. Witnesses insist the figure looked strikingly like Phoenix during his Stand By Me era, not the young adult he was when he died. These visions always vanish the moment someone tries to approach. More disturbing is the pattern of supernatural activity inside the house. Former tenants say mirrors would fog up inexplicably, often revealing what appeared to be faint messages or reflections that didn't match reality. Cold drafts would pass through sealed rooms, and animals, especially cats, refused to enter Phoenix's former bedroom. Visitors report a strange emotional pull in the home, as if it's charged with unresolved energy. Some believe Phoenix, known for his sensitivity and spirituality, left behind more than just memories. One actor who briefly lived there claimed that whenever drugs or alcohol entered the space, electronics would glitch, lights would flicker, and shadows would shift unnaturally, as if the house itself rejected destructive behavior. Today, the house is owned by a conservationist couple who've preserved much of the interior. They've reported a peaceful energy tied to nature. Plants grow faster than usual, and wildlife behaves unusually calm on the grounds. But even they admit every so often they see a boy who doesn't belong to the living quietly watching the world he left behind too soon. Michael Jackson draws the headlines. Michael Jackson's lesser-known estate, tucked deep within the Hollywood Hills, holds stories far stranger and far more supernatural. Purchased under a complex web of corporations in the late 1980s, the mansion was Jackson's creative hideaway, outfitted with state-of-the-art studios, game rooms, and mirrored rehearsal spaces. After Jackson's death in 2009, the property passed quietly into a trust. But those who entered the estate described unnerving phenomena. Studio technicians heard vocal warm-ups echoing in empty rooms. Security footage allegedly captured a figure with Jackson's unmistakable gait, gliding through the halls dressed in signature fedora and white socks, despite no one being present. Perhaps most chilling are the documented audio anomalies. Engineers say they recorded unreleased songs complete with harmonies and ad-libs where no sessions had been scheduled. Experts confirmed the vocal patterns matched Jackson's voice, but the lyrics referenced events from years after his passing. Children who visited described a nice man who dances appearing when music played from the old speakers. One guest recounted seeing Jackson moonwalk across the hardwood floor and then vanish when acknowledged. Paranormal experts brought in under non-disclosure contracts reported unusually rhythmic EMF fluctuations matching the beats of Billie Jean and Thriller. Instruments in the recording room would occasionally begin playing themselves. Mirrors revealed reflections that didn't match the present moment. Unlike darker hauntings, the energy here is often described as joyful, as though Jackson's creative spirit remains tethered to the one place where he could truly be himself. The current caretakers, reportedly musicians themselves, have opted not to renovate. Instead, they treat the space like a shrine to the king of pop's enduring energy. And in that silence between beats, many believe he's still dancing. Whitney Houston. In the quiet suburb of Mendham, New Jersey, a sprawling 12,000-square-foot estate once belonged to the legendary Whitney Houston. Purchased during her peak in the early 1990s, the mansion witnessed both artistic brilliance and deep personal pain, including her turbulent marriage to Bobby Brown and battles with addiction. After her untimely death in 2012, the estate gained notoriety not just for its history, but for its haunting. Within weeks of new owners moving in, they reported strange occurrences. Music would start playing on its own, often Houston's ballads. Her voice, rich, clear, and unmistakable, was sometimes heard harmonizing from empty rooms. It wasn't just audio. Her presence was felt. Cold pockets of air followed her old footsteps, and lights would flicker when her songs played on the stereo. The most intense activity centered around the home's private studio. A teenage daughter of the family, an aspiring singer, claimed she felt Houston watching her during rehearsals. At times, her voice would effortlessly mimic Houston's tone and pitch as if something was guiding her. She later confided that it sometimes felt like Whitney was singing through her. Guests attending a fundraiser on the property witnessed the grand piano playing by itself, followed by Whitney's rendition of "I Will Always Love You" echoing through the mansion. Several fainted, believing they'd seen a glimpse of something not meant for this world. Despite multiple spiritual cleansings, the phenomenon hasn't stopped. The family eventually vacated, unable to endure the constant reminders of the diva's lingering soul. Real estate listings now avoid mentioning the history, but in industry circles, the mansion is spoken of in hushed tones. To those who knew her, it's not just a haunting, it's a legacy. Whitney's greatest notes may have ended on Earth, but in that house, the voice still rises. Corey Haim. Once a beloved 1980s teen idol known for films like The Lost Boys, struggled with addiction and mental health issues throughout adulthood. In the final years of his life, he lived in a modest North Hollywood apartment complex, far removed from the glitz of his early fame. After his death in 2010 from pneumonia, exacerbated by substance abuse, tenants and staff began reporting unnerving activity always centered on his former unit. The first resident to move in after Haim's passing reportedly broke the lease after just 3 weeks. They cited constant whispering in the night, unexplained temperature drops, and the distinct sound of sobbing coming from behind the bedroom walls. Electronics would surge and shut down simultaneously. Multiple renters claimed to see a pale figure with Haim's youthful appearance pacing in the window, often during early morning hours. The building's elevator began malfunctioning repeatedly, stopping on Haim's floor even when uncalled. Hallway lights flickered when residents passed by his unit. Most bizarre was the scent of a specific men's cologne one Haim famously wore during his teen years that would fill the hallway without any source. What makes this haunting particularly tragic is the emotional weight that accompanies each incident. Visitors describe the space as filled with grief and confusion, as though Haim's spirit is locked in the version of himself the world once adored. A fellow child actor who visited the site reported hearing a faint voice say, "They forgot me." The management company has quietly attempted 3 separate exorcisms using different spiritual traditions, but disturbances persist. Some believe Haim's ghost is less malicious than mournful longing to reclaim the identity lost to fame and addiction. And in the stillness of that apartment, the echoes of a boy who never got to grow up continue to stir. Unnamed actress. In the early 1980s, a celebrated A-list actress purchased what appeared to be a dream property in Malibu, a private cliffside estate with ocean views and architectural elegance. The identity of the actress remains legally protected to this day due to non-disclosure agreements signed after a series of terrifying, well-documented supernatural events. Her mansion is now whispered about in Hollywood as the real-life inspiration behind Poltergeist, and the details are far more disturbing than fiction. Shortly after moving in, strange occurrences began. Objects moved without explanation. Lights dimmed and brightened erratically. The actress, known for her rational mindset, initially dismissed it all. But things escalated. Furniture levitated in front of witnesses. A dining room table reportedly hovered several inches off the floor for 30 seconds before crashing down mid-dinner. The most alarming episodes involved her young daughter, who began conversing with an invisible friend that knew intimate details about their lives and predicted events before they happened. Security footage later captured doors slamming without wind cutlery, flying across rooms, and chairs toppling violently. Paranormal investigators brought in at the actress's request claimed it was the most aggressive poltergeist activity they'd ever encountered. EMF readings spiked to dangerous levels, and disembodied voices were captured on audio, some appearing to mimic family members. Historical research revealed that the home was built atop land where a family in the 1920s lost 3 children in rapid succession to illness. Psychics theorized that grief had imprinted itself so deeply into the space that it manifested into chaotic energy. The family fled after less than a year. Despite its prime location, the mansion has been sold multiple times, each new owner leaving sooner than expected. It's currently unoccupied, listed as under renovation, though no construction has ever visibly begun. John Belushi. The electric star of Saturday Night Live and the Blues Brothers was a man whose comedic brilliance masked deep turmoil. At the height of his fame, he purchased a secluded home in the Hollywood Hills, a supposed sanctuary from fame's pressures. But following his drug-induced death in 1982 at the nearby Chateau Marmont, his home became infamous for its lingering spiritual presence. New owners quickly noticed strange phenomena. Laughter, loud and unmistakably Belushi's, would echo through empty rooms. Doors creaked open without wind. Mirrors reflected figures that weren't there. What shook residents the most was the recurring apparition of Belushi in his samurai chef costume standing in the living room, his expression no longer playful but mournful. One homeowner, a network executive, reportedly hired paranormal investigators after guests at a house party saw the ghost of Belushi reenacting an SNL skit in slow motion. Footage captured by motion sensor cameras showed indistinct human forms moving at odd angles accompanied by temperature fluctuations. Perhaps the most tragic detail is that Belushi's spirit seems trapped in a loop, performing but hollow. Several witnesses described interactions where his ghost appeared to be warning them about addiction. One comedy writer claimed the ghost materialized only when drugs were present, staring with sad familiarity. The home has since had several owners, none lasting more than a few years. Despite attempts at spiritual cleansing, activity persists. A medium once said Belushi's spirit was still trying to redeem his legacy, not by seeking fame, but by preventing others from repeating his mistakes. In the end, the house doesn't just hold echoes of laughter, it carries the heavy silence that follows a life cut short. Sharon Tate was tragically murdered by the Manson family in 1969. She resided in a quiet Benedict Canyon home with director Roman Polanski. Though less infamous than the Cielo Drive house where she died, this earlier residence has been the site of chilling supernatural occurrences tied to Tate's spirit and what some believe were premonitions of her fate. During her short time there, Tate confided in friends about waking visions and recurring nightmares. One of her most disturbing accounts included seeing a ghostly man in her bedroom, and even more alarmingly, a bleeding figure tied to the staircase. Those details would later bear eerie resemblance to her real-life murder scene. After her death, new owners reported ghostly activity nearly identical to Tate's own visions. A blonde woman in 1960s clothing was often seen walking the hallway near the master bedroom, her face, pale eyes distant. Guests have claimed mirrors in the house would reflect Tate's image alongside their own, sometimes mouthing words no one could hear. Paranormal teams brought in under confidentiality agreements documented EMF spikes and recorded unexplained voices that responded to questions about Tate's life. One session yielded the phrase, "not ready," repeated 3 times in a female voice. Perhaps the most unsettling account came from Tate's sister Deborah, who visited the house once and refused to return. She told the owners she felt her sister's energy was still trapped, confused, and unable to move on. Neighbors claim ghostly lights flicker through the windows each August around the time of her death. Some say the house itself emits a sorrowful hum at night, especially when it's empty. To many, this isn't just a haunted home, it's a spiritual echo of a life stolen too soon and a tragedy Hollywood still struggles to reckon with. Elvis Presley is immortalized as Elvis Presley's home. It was a secret mansion in the Hollywood Hills where the king reportedly sought true peace, and where, according to insiders, his spirit never left. Purchased in 1973 under a shell company, this secluded property was where Elvis secluded himself from the demands of fame and the decline of his health. Only a select few of his inner circle knew about this retreat. The estate featured a custom-built studio, a replica of his famed jungle room and lush grounds surrounded by heavy foliage. After his death in 1977, the mansion quietly passed to a famous rock star, then to a Grammy-winning producer. Each new owner would come to report the same impossible phenomenon, the unmistakable voice of Elvis echoing through the halls, singing, humming, even commenting on music being played. Surveillance footage reportedly captured a man in a white jumpsuit and gold belt at the top of the stairs. No one matching that description had been on the property. Several visitors swore they heard piano keys being pressed in the jungle room, often in the rhythm of unreleased Elvis melodies. A director who hosted a private event there recalled a moment when all lights dimmed simultaneously and the sound of "Can't Help Falling in Love" began playing on unplugged speakers. Paranormal investigators hired under strict NDAs said the activity was rhythmic, intelligent, and likely tied to the musical energy stored in the space. Most hauntingly, the most recent owner reported seeing Elvis's apparition point toward his chest, later prompting a medical checkup that revealed an early-stage heart condition. Whether coincidence or warning, the incident deepened the belief that Elvis's spirit isn't just lingering, it's protecting. In this home, the King's final encore may still be playing. Marilyn Monroe is most associated with her Brentwood death home. Fewer know about her hidden penthouse on Manhattan's Upper East Side. Purchased quietly under an alias in 1962, the elegant retreat was meant to be her escape from Los Angeles pressures. But after her death later that year, this sanctuary became a site of chilling, persistent paranormal activity. According to former tenants, the earliest manifestations occurred in the 1970s. A film executive and his wife reportedly found the name Marilyn written in red lipstick on their bathroom mirror, resembling her autograph. Strange chills settled over the bedroom each night, and her favorite fragrance, Chanel No. 5, would fill the air despite no source. Neighbors complained about hearing a woman's voice sobbing through the building's intercom. One tenant described nightly whispers of, "Please help me," bleeding through vents always at 12:17 a.m., the time Monroe was pronounced dead. Even electricians could find no faults in the system. A tech mogul who bought the property in 2018 moved out within 3 months, saying it felt like a place with unfinished business. Elevator doors would open on Monroe's floor without being called. Several employees claimed to see her reflection in windows wearing her iconic white dress, staring mournfully at the skyline. Investigators brought in by later owners recorded disembodied voices and electromagnetic pulses in rhythm with Monroe's known heart rate from hospital records. Psychics who visited insisted Monroe's spirit was not malicious, but tormented, trying to share something vital about the truth behind her death. Lucille Ball was America's comedic sweetheart, beloved for her role on I Love Lucy. But after her death in 1989, her Beverly Hills mansion became the center of a ghost story no one could laugh off. The house, once full of joy and slapstick laughter, began to exhibit disturbing signs of unrest. A music industry executive who purchased the estate shortly after Ball's death fled the property within 6 months, leaving behind furniture and refusing to speak publicly. Friends later revealed he had experienced unrelenting spiritual disturbances. Most activity centered around what was once Ball's dressing room, later converted into a study. Sensitive equipment picked up a woman's voice repeating, "Don't let them find it." The most chilling moment came during a teenage house party. Several guests, including the owner's daughter, saw a young Lucille Ball, not the elder version, appear in the living room. She pointed toward a wall frantically, then vanished. When workers later investigated, they discovered a sealed compartment. Inside were old documents allegedly containing career-altering secrets and letters tied to Ball's private legal affairs and family disputes. EMF readings were dangerously high in the room, and audio captured whispers and shifting footsteps even when the house was empty. Despite spiritual cleansings, The haunting ceased only after the documents were quietly removed and secured by the family. Today, the estate remains under private ownership, its history sanitized in real estate listings. But those in the know say Lucy never left, not entirely. Perhaps the pressures of fame combined with unspoken secrets have kept her anchored to the place she once called home. Even comedy legends, it seems, carry shadows behind the spotlight. Roscoe "Fatty" Arbuckle was one of silent film's biggest stars until a 1921 scandal involving the death of actress Virginia Rappe derailed his career. Though he was eventually acquitted, the cloud of accusation never lifted. His Hollywood Hills estate, where the infamous party allegedly occurred, has since become a magnet for ghostly disturbances and dark energy. Modern owners whose identities are shielded by shell corporations and legal teams have experienced unexplainable events. The most frequent report, lavish 1920s-style phantom parties. Guests hear jazz music, laughter, and the sound of glasses clinking in rooms that stand completely empty. Security footage has captured floating orbs and dark figures that vanish on approach. Multiple housekeepers have resigned after encountering a large man in vintage attire appearing in mirrors only to disappear upon turning around. Others reported being pushed or grabbed near the infamous bedroom believed to be the scene of the alleged assault. Even modern security tech fails here. Motion detectors trigger alarms with no-movement cameras lose signal in specific hallways, and recording devices pick up voices using 1920s slang. During one high-profile charity gala, several guests claimed to see a woman in a white dress collapse in the library, only to vanish before anyone reached her. Despite costly renovations and attempts at spiritual intervention, the mansion's aura remains heavy. Paranormal experts believe the trauma of the scandal and Arbuckle's downfall have left a psychic imprint too strong to cleanse. Hollywood prefers to forget the tragedy, but this home refuses to let it go. Judy Garland, iconic star of The Wizard of Oz, died tragically in 1969 in a modest Chelsea townhouse in London from an accidental overdose. But while tourists pass by, unaware residents and insiders know, the home has long harbored a spectral presence, one believed to be Judy herself. The first strange events were reported by Mickey Deans Garland's fifth husband, who found her lifeless body in the bathroom. In the weeks that followed, he claimed to hear her voice singing "Over the Rainbow" at night, from the very room she died in. Later tenants would experience far more intense hauntings. One family reported finding every mirror fogged with the phrase, "No place like home," even when there was no humidity. A music executive in the 1980s hired paranormal investigators after living in fear for 3 months. Recordings captured sobbing and a woman crying out for her children, clearly not part of any external sound source. One of the most documented cases came from a producer who lived in the house during the 1990s. Every night at exactly 12:17 a.m., the estimated time of Garland's death, all electronics would switch on and tune to musical programs. Televisions, radios, and record players erupted in a chaotic symphony. Experts suggest Garland's immense emotional energy, driven by a life of performance and personal heartbreak, may have anchored her spirit. The townhouse has since changed hands multiple times, each new owner staying only briefly. Though legal documents prevent public confirmation, industry whispers say the property is impossible to sell without omitting its haunted past. To many, Garland's voice was a once-in-a-lifetime gift. But in that Chelsea bathroom, it still sings a spectral encore from a legend who may never take her final bow. Ozzy and Sharon Osbourne. In the 1980s, Ozzy and Sharon Osbourne purchased a luxurious mansion in Beverly Hills, expecting a quiet paradise to match their rock star lifestyle. But what they walked into was anything but peaceful. According to Sharon's own public accounts, the house wasn't just unsettling, it was downright terrifying. Soon after moving in, Sharon began seeing a ghostly woman in 1940s clothing walking through their bedroom wall, always clutching a string of pearls and staring with hollow, lifeless eyes. But that was only the beginning. When the family began filming their hit MTV show The Osbournes in 2002, The paranormal activity ramped up. Cameras mysteriously malfunctioned in specific rooms, sound equipment failed without reason, and crew members reported a heavy, suffocating energy throughout the home. The breaking point came during a dinner party when dishes reportedly flew from the table and smashed against the wall with no one nearby. Sharon, who had been hiding these incidents for months, finally spoke out, confirming what insiders had long whispered: the house was haunted. Digging into the property's history revealed a disturbing past. At least 3 former residents had died under mysterious circumstances. One fell down the stairs in what police called an accident. Another passed away in his sleep with no clear cause, and a third was ruled a suicide. None of this was disclosed to the Osborns when they bought the home. Despite efforts to ignore the phenomena, the family eventually left the mansion for good. Ozzy himself, the self-proclaimed Prince of Darkness, reportedly wanted nothing more to do with the place. For a man whose career thrived on shock and horror, this house was too real. Today, the property sits under new ownership, but according to neighbors, strange occurrences haven't stopped. Some places, it seems, even fame and fortune can't cleanse. In a world where fame fades but energy lingers, these haunted celebrity homes raise more questions than answers. Were these spirits trying to reveal secrets Hollywood worked hard to bury? Or are they simply echoes of lives too big to disappear quietly? At Uncovered Tinseltown. Uncovered, we believe every story, living or lost, deserves to be heard. Which mansion haunted you the most? Do you believe these are real spiritual connections or just superstition? Let us know in the comments below. And if you haven't already, like this video and subscribe for more truths Hollywood never wanted you to know.